I feel really sorry for the people who have had to endure months of coming forward with the allegations against Dominic Raab and then Raab resigning in the way that he has this morning, which is incredibly defiant for a resignation, accepting the findings on the report. And, you know, for the Prime Minister to say he's incredibly sad, well, I'm incredibly sad that the Prime Minister can't take the action that was needed to protect civil servants that are trying to go about their day. And it makes everybody feel like, you know, the Prime Minister is weak and doesn't see bullying in the workplace as serious. We saw this with the previous Prime Minister who allowed one of the cabinet ministers to bully someone. They were found to have breached the ministerial code for bullying and was allowed to continue in their job.
This is quite different though, isn't it? He received the report yesterday and by this morning there is a resignation from Dominic Raab. So you could say he has acted quickly and decisively.
Well, I would argue that's not the case because, of course, Prime Minister knew about the allegations against Dominic Raab before he appointed him into cabinet. We've had 3...
They were allegations, though, weren't they? They weren't investigated.
And they could have been investigated and that could have been dealt with before you appoint someone into a significant senior position. And now we see, even now with the resignation, this defiance, this lack of self-awareness about what he's actually done, you know, the threshold for bullying. Well, if you've been found bullying, that's bullying. There's no threshold for bullying, you know. It's completely unacceptable to frame it in that way. And if I was one of those victims this morning who cannot speak out because of the process, I would be feeling absolutely devastated, and it sends the wrong message for the rest of the civil servants who have to have confidence that they can raise concerns and can work in the interests of our country. And if you've got a Prime Minister who's too weak to deal with these issues, then for me, that will lead to risks around governance, around being able to raise issues and to come forward with what's best and what's in the interests of the civil service. And these people know their job. They know it's, you know, it's not a question of, oh, it's your interpretation. These people are senior civil servants. They know their job that they're carrying out. And I think it's just completely wrong that Dominic Raab thinks he can frame it in this way and that the Prime Minister is saying, I'm really sad you're leaving. Well, you shouldn't have appointed him in the first place.
Well, we understand that that report has now been published. As soon as we're able to bring you details of it, we will get Sam Coates to be providing some analysis of it. Now, he was effectively your counterpart. You faced off against him many times. What was your sense of the man and of his behaviour?
I mean, for me, he was my political opponent. He was my political peer. So, you know, the relationship, the power balance there is different to if you're working. You know, if you work for me, if you work for a senior minister like the Deputy Prime Minister, then there's a power imbalance immediately there. So you have to have self-awareness about relationships and conduct in the workplace. Myself and Dominic are politicians and we robustly go at each other at the dispatch box, and that's different. But when you're taking advice, when you're working with civil servants, that is a different relationship, and you have to be aware as a leader about the conduct that you bring out in the office, because you set the culture. And for all of those people to come forward, not one, not two, many people to come forward, notwithstanding what happened previously where a civil servant came forward and lost their job after it had been found that they'd been bullied, it must have took significant bravery for them to come forward. And therefore, I don't think this is an interpretation of somebody's conduct in an office. This is clear that those people felt there was bullying. And the fact that Dominic Raab has resigned tells me, even in his defiance, that he knows there's something there.
Your read of this, Dominic Raab did say that if he was found of bullying, he would resign. Do you get the sense that he willingly tendered that resignation, or did the Prime Minister force his hand?
I don't get the sense that the Prime Minister or Dominic Raab understand the seriousness of that report and the findings within it. There seems to be a sheer lack of self-awareness around the intent. At a senior level should have known that your actions would have been perceived in that way and how that affected people. And there was no apology. It's like backslapping. Oh, you did a good job.
Sorry, not sorry.
Well, I've done a great job. This is terrible. The process was horrible to me in Dominic Raab's and Rishi Sunak's response was not, you're conduct fell below standards, this is terrible, we've got to have the highest standards. It was, you've done a great job, which, by the way, I'd argue that's not the case in justice, but it was literally, look at all these wonderful things you've done, thank you, I'm really sad you're leaving. That report is very clear that the Deputy Prime Minister of this country bullied and intimidated people in their workplace. If you were the victims of that bullying today, you would be feeling that even though Dominic Raab has resigned, that there is no awareness and no acknowledgement of what's happened or ability to put it right.
Just over 24 hours later, he's gone. I imagine he possibly wasn't even in the office today, which may be a relief to some of the civil servants that were working for him. Action has been taken.
Well, he's gone
quickly, and the ministerial code has changed. Sure. He didn't have to be sacked, did he? He could have been sanctioned in a different way. So you could argue that this is Rishi Sunak bringing to bear exactly what he pledged on the steps of Downing Street: integrity and accountability.
What it looks like to me is that they've tried to get ahead of the report being published, because when you hear what Sam Coates was reading out in that report, that's pretty damning. So Dominic Raab's resignation came choreographed with Rishi Sunak with no acknowledgement of what's happened here, just oh, you've done a really great job, and oh, the process isn't quite right, without the acknowledgement actually of the substantive issues within that report. So it's almost like trying to damage limitate what's happened here. I don't see Dominic Raab's resignation as having integrity. He's not thought about his actions. He's not acknowledged what he's done in his resignation letter. And I don't see the Prime Minister's acknowledgement of the resignation as doing any justice to those people that have faced bullying and recognising what's happened here and what he's enabled. Because, of course, he knew about these allegations before he appointed him. And even now, with that report, I don't think the Prime Minister has responded to this in a way that you would expect a leader to respond when that level of misconduct has happened in a senior office.
Dominic Raab, in his op-ed in The Telegraph, writes about how he feels that the process has been unfair, normal rules disapplied, he says, that many of these complaints should have been timed out because of the 3-month time limit for bringing bullying claims, and then says that they were then submitted in a coordinated way. What is your response to that? Have you ever had a sense with civil servants that those kind of situations can arise?
First of all, Rishi Sunak brought Dominic Raab back into Cabinet, and that's where the trigger was for many people who had felt relief that he wasn't there, that wasn't going to be the case. It's pretty clear that as soon as he was brought back into Cabinet, these people were frightened that he was going to be back in the workplace and raised it. I don't think there's a problem with that. I think if you look at the context to which these people came forward as well, as I said before, the former Prime Minister allowed a Cabinet member to bully a senior civil servant, and the Cabinet member kept their job, and the civil servant had to leave even though they were the ones that were found to have been bullied. So for civil servants, under that context, to bring forward these allegations, I would say it's not a question of coordination. It must have been incredibly brave of them and very scary for them to bring those allegations to the fore in the context. But they obviously believed what Rishi Sunak said, and that he wanted to drive forward as Prime Minister with these integrity and with these values. And we've seen actually that hasn't been the case. And I think his letter to Dominic Raab is absolutely disgusting and doesn't acknowledge the seriousness of what's happened.